Greetings, this is Griff Ruby, the Nostalgia Catholic, with another Isaac Asimov short story review. And this next story, A Robot's Theory, appears in this issue of Infinity Science Fiction from February of, well, it's dated February of 1957, so I guess we're kind of getting into 1957. It does announce that there's a story, Isaac Asimov, the most brilliant robot story. Well, it is a pretty brilliant one. It's a pretty good one. So, let's see what it has to say. The only thing it has on the table of contents is just that here's the title, Let's Get Together by Isaac Asimov, page 64. So, what do we find on page 64? A rather nice piece of artwork. Yeah. Let's take a little look at that. Alright, here's our guy. And there's all these different here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Maybe there's the beginning of an 11th, or maybe the 11th is part of the same. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, with an atom among them. Kind of like parts of an atomic bomb that you have these different pieces of radioactive material separated by some physical distance, so they're okay. And then part of what sets the bomb off is you jam them all together, and now they kind of meld. If you do it just right, they'll just fuse together into one large single piece. Some metals will do that if they have a very clean surface-to-surface contact, and they just combine. Anyway, and they combine into this one large metal globule of the stuff, and they call that critical mass. And now suddenly you got enough that it will the reaction will just be a total runaway, and it explodes, kaboom. Okay, and apparently these different robots, they don't know. I mean, we're still talking positronic robots, and presumably the three laws are there, but also presumably the robots are not aware in their programming that they carry pieces of something that once you get all 10 of them in a room together, that'll be critical mass, and boom. And apparently they've got something bigger than merely H-bomb or A-bomb, but something called total conversion. In other words, it turns all of its matter into energy, and not just some small fraction, however that would work. At any rate, if you could do that, you would be talking some very seriously explosive boom. So, at any rate, there they are together, and kind of behind it all, or facing it all, or whatever. It's not quite clear the role of this gentleman. But this whole specter of a huge kaboom lingers in the background. So, that's kind of nice artwork, illustrated by Engel, whoever that is. Okay, that's our only artwork. We dive into the story. Let's get together. There's no blurbs on this, interestingly enough. It just dives straight into the story, which goes on for a few pages, with no further artwork, and that's the end. Okay, so what happens in that? And in comparing that against the reprint of the story that appears in the rest of the robots, I just found a single sentence that needed to be emphasized. It wasn't originally. They put it in italics. Very small. So I think we can just focus on the story from itself from this point on. So what happens in the story is that you've got the expert in American robotics is called to try to see if he can come up with some way to test for robots coming in. And apparently there's still a rivalry between American West and the Russian East. That's rather curious. They're predicting that something similar to that simply continues from then until like 100 years later on, or however long it is. Only what's happened here in all of this is that almost nothing has changed. They've gotten so used to being around each other, it's almost become friendly. not all that much unlikely to how things would be when we could compete in friendly ways together, like the famous, Fischer-Spassky chess match of '72, or the ping pong games with China not long after Nixon goes to China not long after that, or détente and Henry Kissinger and all of that kind of stuff, where it looked like we were at least trying to get along with them, even while we were still very serious rivals between the East and the West. And they kind of had this idea that we would regain East Germany but lose, and they just said Formosa. Well, we have regained East Germany. Let's hope and pray we don't lose Formosa or Taiwan. That I think that would just be horrible. I mean, that would be a terrible loss to the Chinese people. But be all that as it may. Anyway, so all of this is kind of still there, but they're still real suspicious of each other, and there better not be any major scientific advancements on either side, or the lopsided advance could create enough of an advantage to cause one or the other side to think we can win this thing if we go to war now with this advantage we've just discovered. And that's the fear, is that maybe they're sending these robots in. So here's this security guy, Breckenridge, I believe is his name. I'll say it. Yeah, Chief of Robotics. Elias Lynn is the robotics person. He's the Chief of Robotics. Breckenridge. And then there's a guy named Breckenridge who's some guy from Washington, D.C., who's some kind of security expert who's got this information, maybe brought back from his visit to Moscow or something, that 10 robots have been constructed and smuggled into America somehow. As long as they wander around in different places, no harm, no foul. But if ever they're brought together in one room or something, kaboom. Total conversion, kaboom. Probably like 350 kiloton, megaton bomb or something. I mean, just huge. So they're worried about that, and they're beginning to round up some more extras to talk about this. What are we going to do? How can we investigate this? What are some ideas? Can we do anything about it? How sure can you be? Blah, blah, blah. All these different questions. And finally, this Breckenridge kind of comes forth with, well, I think we need to do something about this. And I think what we really need to do is get all our best scientists to try to come together and work together on this thing to try to solve this problem and see if we can figure out what to do. And then it's up to this what's his name? Elias Lynn, the roboticist, who's hearing all of what Breckenridge is going to do. He's going to, we're going to bring everybody, even scientists like astrophysicists, but even somebody outside our area of expertise could have something to contribute, because, I mean, you're talking the greatest minds in the whole country. We really need to gather them together and see if we can try to figure out what to do and how to capture these people, these robots, I should say. And Elias Lynn, in all of this description, has a little time to think. He gets his role becomes kind of titular, which actually gives him some time to think. I mean, so much is going on around him all of a sudden. He's officially in charge, where everybody else is doing so much. He's ironically found with rather little to do, so it actually gives him time to think. And while he's thinking, he suddenly comes up with a very sobering realization in all of this, and manages to solve what's really going on. There are 10 robots that are very dangerous, and if they are brought together, there will be an explosion. But when, where, or how, they talk about different cities. And again, it's kind of interesting. Maybe Washington, D.C., that's the administrative center. Maybe New York, that's the financial center. Or maybe Detroit or Pittsburgh, which were, at least as they wrote that at the time, the industrial centers. Apparently there wasn't any of those things west of the Mississippi at those days. Well, a lot has changed in that area, hasn't it? So probably Silicon Valley might be a target, or maybe, who knows, or Hollywood or some such thing. Anyway, he solves it. I won't spoil that solution, and it's a great story. You'll love it. Thanks for listening.